Hello and welcome to our Saturday stream. I'm Josh, and this is our map and image creation with Fantasy Grounds Unity. Thanks everyone for joining me today. I hope you're all having a great week. This month's releases have been the Abandoned Places 2 art package as well as a Jungle art pack. So those have come out. This next month in December, we'll be releasing a follow-up to the Jungle art pack. Another whole bunch of different images that are going to go with that. And then there's another art package, but I'm not exactly sure which one that's going to be yet. In addition to that, this next month, we're going to be releasing free on the Forge. I'm going to put out some free maps, as well as images and tokens for you guys. That it's all going to be related for the holiday season with a Krampus kind of theme. Should be pretty fun. And I think that Brad is going to be adding in some of the flavor text as well, setting up kind of a scenario. So it'll be a nice little encounter for you. And I have a couple of those assets here that I can show you guys today. Now let's go into, I think it's in here. Yeah. So I did a nice little Krampus illustration for you guys. We'll be able to have. And I'm going to make this into a token, as well as some of his minions to be able to use these in your game. In addition to that, I've done, I think there'll be 5 maps in total. You guys will get those for free. As I said, this will be all packaged up and put on the Forge for this next month. And so did a nice little cabin with an interior. And you guys will be able to use all of these in your games. So it should be great. Everything's going to be kind of winter themed, obviously. And it should be super fun. Also on the horizon is we'll be releasing. I did not do those in an art pack. Nope, I did those just completely freeform. So these will just be standalone maps that you can use. They will work well with art packs, so you can certainly use the winter art pack with them and adjust them in English. But they will have some tokens and whatnot with them as well. Great. So I thought that we were working on a nice abandoned place, this kind of urban environment, but we'll take a little break from that today. And we can thought that we would use the jungle art package and maybe make a little jungle scene. But if somebody has another suggestion we could make today, please throw it out there. All of the maps that we make here will also be available on the Forge. You will be required to have either the art subscription or only art package to use the maps, however, as this is just the technical data that kind of. So let's jump right over here. So we have a nice little jungle map pack here, Jungle Map Pack 2, that came out this month. And I said, as I said, this next month there's going to be an additional follow-up to this. So there's quite a lot of this kind of stuff coming. And this is great for creating all of your jungle kind of environments. There's lots of really cool stuff in here. I'm just going to create a new image here. Let's resize this. And I'm going to change this to 100 by 100. And you can see that this starts off at a 25 by 25 grid. And that's a pretty good size for us. If we need to add on to this, we certainly can. It's really simple to build this out. All we have to do is flip it so that it is completely seamless. Oh, thank you. This is the Gothic theme. And this is also available for you guys. If you have the art subscription, you get access to all of the themes that I produce as well. So this one will be there as well, or you can purchase this on the store. And this is with the new sidebar changes that you can see in Test Center, which is currently our next big project. So we won't have any other themes released until all of these UI changes kind of come about. Yeah, this was actually a pretty fun little theme to make. I put this together a while ago, and if we look, we have a nice little. Let's turn on our dice tower. We have a cool little guy down here, and when we roll our dice in him, his eyes glow up. Fun stuff. So moving back up. Oh, I didn't want to go all the way up. We have a whole bunch of different brushes that we can use, and I think I briefly kind of demonstrated some of these. And we also have a lot of decorations and all of the different types of foliage. We have all kinds of broken elements that we could find out in the jungle and those types of areas. Also, gotta have lots of rocks and different kind of ruined pieces, and we can kind of build this up. So we're going to make a nice, cool little area here today. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into brushes. And I thought we would do some little cliff areas and whatnot, maybe make a little ravine in the middle. We can do some ruins on one side, and maybe we'll create a bridge across or something along those lines. We could even do like a nice little stream running at the bottom. So I think what we'll do is we'll make a new painting layer. And I'll grab this out. We want to make sure we're in our painting tab here. Let's see, which one should we use? We'll use both of them. Let's start off with the wider one here. And I'm just going to make this like 2, maybe 3. Make it 3 wide. Oh, that's great. Well, we're really welcome to have you here. Draconism. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down Control so I can snap to my grid here. That way I can pull right out from the edge. I want this to go the other direction, so I'm going to just flip it here. And as you can see, that's going to change that. And I'm just going to click out, and then I'm going to build up a little area over here. And then again, I'm going to hold down Control and double click. Try that one more time. And let's lower down the opacity of our grid system here. I'm just going to click on the color picker in the grid tab and lower down the alpha change. And here we have a nice little ridge here. And once we add in our shadows and whatnot, you'll see that this is going to really have that nice feeling of depth. And again, I'm going to hold down Control, and that's going to snap to my grid. And that's a little off, so I'm just going to hit Control Z and try that one more time. And again, I'm going to hold down Control and just end it right there. You can see that matches right up with the edge exceptionally. Now I'm going to grab this other brush. And I'm going to build this on top here. I'm going to make a couple of different layers to make this feel like, and we could do it underneath as well. We may do that. And one of the advantages of using a layered system is that I can create additional layers and flip. But rather than have, we could just leave it at this, certainly. But having this layered, and you're going to see, it's going to add a little bit more depth to it. We zoom in here, we're going to see that we're going to have this nice little texture. We might even want to change how this interacts here a little bit. We might want to change the value of this. I might make this a little bit in redder. Take away some of that green. This is going to make it stand out a little bit more from the others. Nice. And so now when we zoom in here, we can see that we have a couple of different layers of the rock. It's just going to give us a little bit more information for us to create our little shadows from. So on. We can do like vines kind of draped across and do all kinds of cool. And what I'll do is I'll do one more, and I think, oh, we've created another painting layer. So we'll create one more here. What I'm actually going to do is, let's do one more. We'll put it in underneath here. And I'm going to hold down A and just use my mouse wheel to lower the opacity of this on the fly. And I'm going to do this a little bit lower in opacity so that when I pull this out here, it's going to be more subtle underneath all of these. And that's sticking out a little bit too far. I think that we should have it a little bit more narrow. So I'm just going to Control Z it right back out. I'm going to narrow this down a little bit, make it a little bit smaller here. Not quite that small. I want to keep it pretty close here. And I'm going to have it come in and out a little bit. And then again, we'll just end it right there. And I'll do the same on the other side here. And what I'm going to do with these three painting layers, I'm going to continually use them through this process. And what we want to do here, maintain the height level. So what we're going to do is this is going to be our top level, which is going to be all the stuff that's up on this very top level. And this will be this medium level in through here, where we're going to do any sort of trees that might be down at the base, down below, and so on. And this is going to be the very bottom layer, right? So just above our ground floor. But only down here, right? We're not going to worry too much about that stuff. But if we do textures and whatnot, we can certainly put that in this layer as well. So why don't we get right into that? We'll go into our decorations here. We have things like grass. We can switch over to our stamp tool. As you can see here, we got these nice little piles of grass and whatnot. But we want to, maybe we should plan it out. What do you think? Should we do like a nice little stream in through here? A waterway? You guys have any preference? And why don't we rename these before we get going too far? We'll do top, mid, and bottom. And that way I'll just know where I should be placing things. That kind of. Well, actually, you know what? We'll create one more painting layer and we'll drop that down here and we'll call this ground texture. Yeah, that sounds cool. Why don't we do muddy waters? Yeah, why don't we do both? Why don't we do like a little um, pool up through here, and then we'll do a small stream that kind of comes through, and we can do some nice edges to it. Yeah, that sounds great. So what I'll do is I'll kind of plan out the water system first. And in this particular area in through here, in our assets, I'm just going to type in water. And this is going to give me all of the different water assets in addition to all of the underwater assets. Well, let's actually type in brush. So here we have some nice water brushes, and let's see, these are in 2019. Interior map pack. I think we also have some nice coast brushes, maybe even like river. Yeah, we have some nice river brushes that we can use. So we'll probably use something along these lines. And these are all in the 2019. Let's go all the way up and just jump right in there. That's the map module. That. I'm going to jump in here and go to our brushes. And here you can see we have some nice edge brushes, and we can kind of create any waterway that we would. And I'm actually going to be tinting this a little bit. Why don't we do, I'm actually going to grab this one, I think, to create all of my base little waterways here. And we're going to create a new painting layer. We'll call this one River. And this way I can actually adjust all of the colors that I want to, as far as like the water goes. And I think what we'll do is do our water. And because I want it to kind of be like, if you've ever noticed, like in these jungle kind of environments, there's lots of algae in the water. Water tends to be much more green, or it's certainly not the classic kind of blue that we might expect. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hold down Control. I'm going to start to paint this out, and then I'm going to paint right around in a circle over here and kind of determine our edge of our little pool, and we'll probably do it out from the side. So why don't I actually start from this side? Let's do something like this. And this is going to look pretty square, but we're gonna add our own little coastline to it, and that's going to give us some ins and outs and all the things that we would expect to see. I'll just end it right there. And then what I'll do is I'll do my other edge to my pool here. We'll bring this out. And that's fine. I just want to make sure that the edge here. And then I have a nice little water filler that we can. I think in our tiles here, we can actually just grab along these lines. Whoop. And we could kind of paint this over the top if we wanted to. I think that in our maybe effects, oh no, probably in our decorations, I believe that's a little round water brush. It's a whirlpool, and we can do like some rocks and things along those. I'll just use one of these. Already got it loaded. And we'll make this exactly 4x4 so I can just kind of stamp this. And again, I'm not going to worry about these edges right now. We're going to be adding in all kinds of different elements along the edge. But now that I have these all kind of placed in here like this, I'm not going to use any more water elements. Everything else is going to be kind of layered on top of this. So I can go right over into my layers tab. And as long as I have my layer selection tool selected, I can change any sort of colors that I want to that are associated with this layer. So I can start to bring down some of that red and some of that blue and make it whatever kind of color that I'm thinking here. I think that we want to make it a little bit kind of murky looking here. I don't want it to be too vibrant. I want to kind of give it that edge, right? Along these lines. We might want to darken that up a little. And if I want to, I should probably just grab the hexadecimal code that will be associated. We might want to just move everything down to the left. Let's get it a little bit darker, right? Yeah, maybe something like this. And then I'll grab this code with Control C. Hit OK. That way, if I have to mimic that color later, it'll be very easy. And now I'm going to go back into my main area up here. And we can just type in Ghost Brush, I think. We have some of these edges like this, but maybe it's... There's so many art packages that we've released so far that it's hard for me to remember where everything... But I think we have some nice little edges here. I want something along these lines, but without the water element. I have some. No, I do. And perhaps it's in our... there's that one. We have a nice water splash. Now let's just type in brush and check out all of our different brushes. And so our search little function down here is very, very helpful for doing these kinds of things. Look at all these brushes. There's so many. I guess I don't have one. I'll have to create one and put that in there. But we can use, we can certainly use any one of these if we want to in that regard. So I'll just show you guys how I will kind of circumvent. We'll find something that's going to be approximate to what we want to do, and then we'll just blend it in with our surroundings. I could do something like this, but I don't want to have control. I want to be able to do each side independently. I'm going to look for something that we can manipulate in that way. So I'm thinking if we go all the way back here. I might use one of these trail brushes right on the edge. I think that that'll probably work the best for what I'm kind of, and then we can kind of place any of the stones and whatnot that we might be thinking to do that. Now I'm going to do this, we'll drop this down to appropriate layer. And I'm going to do this on the actual bottom layer. I don't want it to interfere with the actual color changes that we've done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to just run this right along the edge here. And again, I'm going to go in and out a little bit. I'm not going to follow the exact pattern that I've created here. We'll do some little maybe islands and whatnot in the middle as well. And this is going to be our start to the edge of our water here. I'm going to hold down Control again, and I'm just going to pull that off from the edge. And that's just going to make sure that we line up properly with that. And you can see that just the natural way that this brush has been created, it will add in a lot of variance along this edge. And we might come in quite far. We'll add it just like that. And then we'll blend in this other edge. And you can see that's going to create us a nice little edge to our water. And we'll be able to build on the river itself underneath. And we can add in all of the little frothy points. Got to have some frothy points, right? I think we'll just move that back a little. I don't want to interfere with the little bit of cliff that's sticking out. And I'll hold down Control, and we'll just end it right. Great. Now let's go back all the way up into our jungle art. Back to. In our decorations, we have a nice little dirt stamp here. What I'm actually going to do is I'll make this a little bit small. I'll hold down my alpha channel here, and I'm going to blend in this edge here. Make sure we're in our stamp. Actually, you know what? Let's do it with a brush. Let's continue our brush little stuff here. So we have some nice additional kind of elements. We could certainly use some of those winter ones as well. One of the great things about the winter brushes is that you can change their color to anything that you wish by leaving them in that state. But we have some cool like wooden platforms. I thought that we could make some makeshift kind of bridges going across, and that would be very. You know what? We can actually, now that I'm thinking about it, we could use the exact same brush that we just used. We can use this little trail brush or even one of the other ones, and then we can lower down its opacity and just kind of blend that edge out a little bit more. Make sure we switch back over to our line tool. And this will just kind of bleed out that edge a little. And this way we don't have to stamp out a lot of that texture stuff. Yeah, that works quite well. You can see we have a nice little edge to it. It's got a little bit of grass that kind of goes down into the water itself. Very cool. Looking great. Now we'll go back into our jungle art pack. We'll start to add in some of these ground textures. I may even want to put this above now. I might even want to put it up in through. So I'm going to add in, I'm going to do some ground textures that kind of come up over this. So keeping that in mind, we have this lower area down here. We might even want to move this eventually, which that'll be very easy to do. We can just erase that out. Oh yeah, the Grand Canyon jungle version. So let's go into our decorations. I'm going to grab this grass and make it an appropriate size for our grid. I'm going to lower down my opacity. I'm just going to use this to help bring in some of that, as I said, some of that texture. And here, when I start to stamp this over, by lowering down the opacity, I can kind of build up these neat little textures. And we'll do a combination of areas where we have foliage and not down here. And perhaps before we even get going too far, add an effects layer. And we'll go over into our effects tab here, adjust colors. I'm going to drop down the brightness here. And then we'll just mask out our bit of shadow. So the larger the shadow that we're going to be cast from this, that out a little to make it a little bit blue. It's like 47. The further we bring this shadow out, the higher we're going to make the cliff kind of. And we're going to be adding in additional shadow information as well. This will just give us a little bit. See that this just adds a little bit of depth. What we're trying to do. We might want to blur that out a little bit more. We'll be having our light coming. Yeah, it's starting to look great already. Now we can go back into our painting here, back into our round texture. We might even want to do this in a couple of different areas too, like in our top. And we might want to have our stamp tool selected. We can stamp out some of this. But I think we'll do like a bridge here. So I think what we'll do is remove some of that. We'll keep this kind of open as like a path that kind of goes across, and we'll do some ruins up a couple of sides. And we have lots of plants and ferns and whatnot. You can do all kinds of cool things. Ooh, let's grab a log. And maybe we'll put this down here. Maybe we'll do it out into the water here a little. I think that would be cool. Oh yeah. I think what we should do, building from this kind of scenario, is we should probably focus on the top as being our primary focus, and then we can add in some additional elements at the bottom. I'm going to do the water first, and then we'll do the top. And then we'll see. We don't want to overdo anything that's down here, making it too much of the focal point. Here we have our nice little splash brush, or image rather. And I'm going to drop down the opacity of this quite a lot. And I could even change this color here. We could make it a little bit on the green side. And maybe we'll make it a little bit more opaque. We'll bring down that just a little bit. We don't want it to be too vibrant, right? Now let's just see how this interacts with the change in the. And we'll drop down the opacity. We want to kind of have that feeling that a lot of this around these objects in the water. I'm going to grab this little shadow here. I'm just going to do a little bit of a shadow along that edge down there. And I can actually do it. We go into this map module. We have a nice little shadow brush here that I can kind of run it just along this edge. And I'm going to make it not quite so wide. Yeah, maybe like 1. Maybe something like. And here in the river too, I'm just going to hold down Control here. And you can see that, and this is going to go right underneath. And this is going to give us a little bit of height, embankment. And by not doing it very specifically, we're going to create different elements. And I think we can even add in, we can use a brush like this, add in some additional shadow down here, some ambient. Right across the way. And that might be a little bit too dark. I'm going to control that, Control Z it, and then hit A, turn down my opacity. Like that. Perfect. Now let's go back into our jungle art pack. I'm going to go into our decorations. I'm going to grab this little dirt in the top area here. And we can again lower down our. I'm just going to kind of re-emphasize that there's dirt here. Lower that down a little. I'm going to have this be like this primary kind. I say we'll build a bridge across here. Because of the way that this is set up, right, we can already feel like this is much higher. We have, and that's all subliminal from the shadow itself, right? So the shadow gives this a little bit more depth. We might even want to add in another adjustment for colors to everything a little bit. And we'll do some highlights along this edge, which will add to the entire. Pardon me while I have a sip of my coffee. So let's grab some of these other elements here. We'll put the bridge in a little bit later. Some of these plants and actually, we probably should do the bridge now, shouldn't we? So that way we can kind of do some of the plants like growing up over some of the edges and whatnot. So I think we're actually going to go into the goblin camp, and here we have some nice brushes that we can. I'm thinking this one. And basically all I'm going to do is just pull it right across. Now we're going to take this, adjust colors, and we want to remove the shadow from this. We could drop it down, but then we won't have it any sort of interaction. Right? Drop it down here, which that actually kind of works, right? We could add in some additional shadows. But let's try it both ways. We'll see which one kind of works the best. I'm going to go to Hide Area. I'm going to hold down Alt so I am not restricted. And we're just going to act that up. I think that that's going to work. Now going back into this painting area, I'll show you guys a little trick that you can do to make a quick little drop shadow of this. And I'm going to do this on another painting layer. I'm going to drop this down in underneath. We want it to be under what we've just painted, but over everything else. So I'm going to hold down R, G, and B, and I'm going to use my mouse wheel to bring it all the way down, at least close to black. And then I'll hold B, and I'll just make it a little bit on the blue side. I'm going to dark blue, a little bit of blue in there. Then we can drop down our opacity, and we're going to make a shadow for this bridge. Get it to somewhere where we think it's accurate. Or you know what would even be better? Let's keep it solid, and then I can adjust the opacity of this particular painted layer. Let's start off somewhere over here, about where the bridge is going to be coming down, and we're going to pull it out here, go across, something like that. As you can see, we'll have to fudge it on these little edges over here. Now, if I come in here, I'm going to adjust this. Create a nice little drop shadow. If I want to, I can even move it around and adjust it. Maybe it should be something out like this. We might even want to do it a little bit narrower, so it looks like it's kind of farther away down there. Yeah, let's do that. Make it a little bit smaller. Yeah, I got a little wonky there in the middle. Oh, that's not from. Oh, that I didn't erase. That is why. Maybe what we should do is just do it. And then kind of fudge in that. We can put it down somewhere like this. Yeah, why don't we do here? We can kind of adjust it to it here. And this again is going to help us determine height, right? And if we want to, because this is painted with the line tool, we can actually adjust its length, change it around after we've placed it. We can even change its angle here. But I'm thinking we'll probably do this. Nice. Let's go back up into our top layer, painting area over here. And now we can start to add in a whole bunch of. I'm just going to add in a couple of posts on either side. And we might even do like a rope line across. So we can type in post, and we'll have a whole bunch of different ones depending on what we're trying to do. If we want to make it seem more tribally or scary, we can add in these ones. These kind of have like piles of skulls around them and whatnot. I think we'll just use pretty generic kind of one, something like this. And we'll make it a bit smaller. And I think we'll just do them on one side here. And now what we can do is type in rope brush. And here we have a nice little rope brush that we can use. We want to make sure we have our line tool. If we want to do like a really taut kind of rope across, we can do that. We could also kind of paint it out in a slight arc. I think we're just going to do it nice little taut rope that kind of goes across like this. And again, if we want to do like a shadow for this, all we have to do is hold down R, G, and B. Make that quite a bit darker. Then we'll drop down the opacity here a bit. And we'll be able to do a little rope line right across there. And we're not going to worry too much about here. We're going to be blending in shadows from. I think I want to make it a bit more subtle. Something like that. And just barely seen across. Oh well, thanks, Drake. I appreciate that, but I'm sure that your maps look great as well. I'd love to see them sometime. Question from Svenster: are you going to be looking at tokens ever? Well, the token market is pretty heavy, so I don't know as I'll ever be creating like a token pack. But yeah, there will be inadvertently some tokens that do come out on occasion. Now let's go into our jungle art pack. Grab some of the plants in here, whatnot. And what I like to do is kind of build up some of these base little areas here. We have lots of textures and whatnot, but I'm going to actually create a new layer here. Drop this here. Well, actually, we'll probably put it up. And we'll call this trees. And I oftentimes put in my trees first so that I don't overwork the area, because the trees are going to take up quite a lot of space, higher up real estate here. We have some nice tree elements here. We even have a cool little one here that we could put kind of like hanging out over. If we drop this down into our mid here, maybe we'll put it over here. Now let's put it on this side. We'll give maybe something like this. kind of growing out from the edge of the cliff here. And then I'll just add in a little bit of extra foliage on top here. And let's grab some of these lines. And I have some here that are also, we could have like out over. So you can see what I mean, how much real estate the tree layer kind of takes up. And with these, maybe we'll do one like here. If I were to place in lots of plants around and whatnot, I would inadvertently kind of cover them all up again. And one of the great things about putting this kind of like top canopy layer in its own layer is during our play session, we can actually lower down the opacity of it if we need to. So I can just drop this down and we can have kind of see what's going on underneath. We always want to try and make our maps as functional as possible in addition to making them. We're going to do some ruins over here, but that's going to be underneath our tree layer. And we'll be placing those in next. Awesome. I think we should do one of these heads. Like poking out from underneath one of these trees. I think we'll do it over here. And then we'll do like moss and whatnot all over. And we can take some of these broken pieces, we can just type in broken. Some of these pillars and whatnot. I always do that. And I think that if we type in stone, most of these come up. And we can kind of just start to place and fragments of all of these ancient places. We have some ones that are in different orientations, so we can kind of, right, like where things have toppled over. And then we have some pre-built. And then there's going to be an additional one. You can see we have all cool stuff that we're going to be using today. Things. Here we have all of these ruins parts. Some nice little pre-built elements. Add in statues here. Place Let's do. Like this. And we can start to decorate this, add some vines across it. And I really like these kinds of things where we can really start to add in a lot of texture. Like some of these have all of this stuff that's grown over the top of them. What I'll actually do is let's grab some of these kind of elements here. I'm going to grab this grass one and I'm going to lower down the opacity. I'm going to use this to kind of build up that that stuff on top here. We'll even lower down the opacity. You can see how this is just going to give everything that kind of moss covered or whatever it is that's grown all over elements. We can even do some on the bridge itself here. And we can go down into that's our shadow. Go into here and underneath these elements, do some that's kind of like coming up. All right, let's go down underneath now. We can start to add in some of these other plant elements and so on. Start to build this place up a little bit more. And then, well, actually, let's do our major shadows as it is right now. We can do some from all of these particular elements. I want to make sure that reveal area. So underneath these trees, blocks like this. And we don't have to be exact. We're kind of plotting some things in here. This one's pretty obstructive of that tree that we have sticking. We might move, erase it, and then place it over. something. Now we go into our top area over here. Grab some of the ferns. Let's go back into our painting area. Grab some of the color variation to them. We'll some of these up over some of this stuff. Make it really feel like it has been lost to the jungle. We have this open area. You might want to do like some foliage that kind of comes out into here as well. There's a whole bunch of different these ground plants and whatnot. Maybe we'll do a couple of stuff out through here. These angled ones I love to use it to kind of re-emphasize the edge of things. Grab a couple of these rocks as well. I think we'll go down down and through here. Maybe at the ground texture level here. We can add in some additional kind of elements like this. And again, we'll grab some of these plants and we'll put them down here. We want to have some that kind of let's grab some of these ferns. Kind of come out over the water here. You can see with this multi-layered kind of cliff, we can actually do things like this. We can have it go over that bottom area, but then under here. So it really helps sell that idea of height. We have some height here. We might even want to grab some of these other plants. Do some variety over here. And then we'll do some layers of stuff on top. See how easily it is to get carried away with it. Oh, thank you so much. And now what we're going to do is I'm actually going to do, we want to even have a little bit further of a separation between this little area down through here in the top. I'm going to actually create another effects layer. We can do this a couple of different ways, but we want to do something that is going to, if you guys are unaware of this, as things move away from you in the real world, they become less, the contrast goes down. The darks and lights become closer and closer to the mid value. We kind of want to emphasize that down here. We don't want these things to be as dark as the things up here. We can either do it with an adjust colors layer, but I think we can also get away with doing it with like a clouds layer, where it's going to give it a little bit of motion down below. And so what I'll do is I'll drop this right down in below our top layer, so I don't have to worry about being too exact with my elements here. I'm going to increase this a little bit. I'm going to drop down my speed to something around 52. See, that's going to move really slowly across here. And then I'm going to add a mask to it. And I'm just going to roughly, because I can use edges here, and we're going to drop down our shadow here. Because I just want that element. And we might even want to drop it down in underneath the mid. Now we can adjust this a little bit here. You know, this makes it a little bit too bright. So why don't we just do it with, we'll do it with an adjust colors, and that's going to maintain the mask that we just put on there. And what I can actually do is now I can adjust the, we can bring it all the way up to white if we want. What we want to do is lower down the contrast here. Make it seem a little bit set back. I wonder if we can do it, we might be able to do it with a time of day as well. You can see that that's going to help. If we hide this, we have this bit of a brightness down there. We can kind of control it now. Go into our tree area over here. And let's just adjust this. I want to make sure that we can kind of see this one. We'll go back into our tree. We'll just grab a different tree and change its orientation there a little. Grab this one. And then we'll back here. Great. Let's go into our brushes. Let's grab some of these vine brushes and start to add in some. Now there's a bunch of different things that we can do with these. And we can create, we also have like roots and stuff that we can use coming out and around and all kinds. But what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go down to the mid area here. And this is where we have some of these ground elements and whatnot. We can even go into our ground texture. What I can do here, we have to be careful because I might change this. Well, actually, let's get rid of a lot of this. We can do a little bit more with our ground. And we're going to go back into here. I think I'm going to go into my ground texture. I'm going to do like some vines along the ground here to come in and out of places. Instead of clicking and dragging out, I'm actually going to hold down the mouse button so I can just kind of draw them out. I can do smaller ones, kind of coming off, going over and around. And you can see while we're doing it on our ground texture, it's going to kind of come in and out of these. A little bit too contrived looking. Let's grab some of these additional vine elements as well. Yeah, that's and we can actually do some like vines hanging in between elements and whatnot. And we can go up too. We can actually put some above these elements. So it looks like that they kind of come in and out of all the different. We could even do some that are kind of like hanging across here. We can do some larger ones and some smaller ones and kind of pull them all together. We'll add some plants here to kind of hide that. Let's do some that are kind of yeah, those kind of break up that image too much. I think it'll be too confusing. I'll grab some of these smaller ones. We can kind of do attachment. You can see how cool and easy this is to do in Fantasy. These are the kind of things that players will see on a map, and they'll, those look scary to me. And we can actually let's do a whole bunch of, maybe we'll go down here, the mid area. We'll do some vines that are just kind of all over the place down through here. Maybe some that go all the way down to the ground. Those are a little bit confusing too. I think we'll keep them kind of like in these arcs. Awesome. And now if we come back in here, let's type in plants, or plant rather. And I'm going to grab some of these as well. And in the same area, one of the things that we can do here, let me reset the orientation of this. With our aspect lock ratio off, if you want to make this seem a little bit more foreshortened, all you have to do is reduce the height of it, right? And now I can lower down the size and the opacity of it. And I can kind of add in these kind of elements where, make sure we're in our stamp mode here. Go into our top here and do some of this stuff that's kind of like hanging down over the edge here. And lowering down my opacity a little bit more. Fade some of the stuff off. Now I'm going to grab some of these other plants here, and we'll build up some of the edge over here. Some of these vines are kind of coming out from underneath of. This is the great thing about the layers as well. You can kind of back and forth from these plants here. Oh, well, thank you so much. I'm sure that your maps look great. Is it G-Cline? Is that how you would say that? G-Cline? I'm going to do some over this stuff. As you can see, now when we start to pile this stuff on top here, it makes so much more sense. That all of this foliage really feels like it's built up. I'm over here in the shadow of building. Yeah, that's a pretty accurate conclusion. And you know what? I oftentimes will add these elements to my maps for my players to give them at least some sort of doubt of the bridge's like security. So they'll be like, "Well, there's vines. Are we supposed to use the vines?" And then they'll kind of at least get their brain thinking here. Awesome. So we have done a fairly complete map here, right? Looking pretty good. I'm just going to add in some of my classic kind of elements, and then we'll actually do a little bit of highlights on this map as well. I want to really feel like that it is in the jungle, quite a lot of sun. And we can do a little bit more with the water as well, which would be pretty fun. I'm going to grab my little very useful image that I use all the time here. And we'll go into particular elements here. I'm just going to add in a little bit more shadow. So I'm just going to hold down R, G, and B. And I'm going to drop this all the way down to black. I'm going to hold down B, and I'm just going to increase it. Just make it a little bit blue. Maybe 1 or 2 clicks. Then here we can drop down the opacity of whatever seems appropriate. And this is where I'm going to add in some on top of the. I'm not going to go too crazy because we're going to add highlights. So all of these plant kind of clusters. I'm going to go and do a little bit of subtle shadow on one side of them. And I'm going to actually make it quite large, and I'll do a little bit over the entirety. And then I'll come in and do some individual. And what I'll do is I'm going to make it a bit oblong. You see here we have this little bit of an oblong. And now I'm just going to add in shorter than that. Shadows for these posts. And we'll bring it back to round. And then I'm going to go back into my tree area here. And I'm just going to do a little bit of subtlety on the tree here. Just to give them a little bit of additional shape. And you can see that this map has taken us just a little over an hour to make, but I think it looks great. We'll add one more effects layer. Say just colors. And what we can do is increase our brightness here. And I'm going to make this. We're going to decrease our blue and maybe even the green a bit. I want it to be something like this. This is going to be a little bit too bright once we add our mask. And we're going to blur this out. So what we're going to do is going to create these little like sun spots here. We can blur these right out. And that actually works pretty good. And we can do these nice little like a bloom kind of effects. And we can adjust our blur to whatever it's going to. We might want to make it a little bit less. Find a good happy medium here. Maybe something along these lines. Bring this down. Not quite so right.